And I go, what are you doing now? You're doing nothing. And he said, no, that's crazy. I could sell it for more than that. So he hangs up the phone, and I text him back a picture of me and my kids and my wife. And I said, this is fun for you. It's life-changing for me. Changed my life. And he wrote back, you just bought a radio station.
This is Small Business Celebration, where we introduce you to successful small business owners at their place of business so that you can learn something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business and get your next big breakthrough.
Hi Visioneers, we often get asked what does it look like behind the scenes. So today we just concluded an interview and we're going to show you. So all the equipment comes out of this lovely coffin because it's really big and we have a lot of stuff. And then we have our cameras that come out of here. And then here's the interview setup that we did. So we had a 3-camera setup. You're looking at 1 camera. These are the other 2. And then everything gets lit with giant lights and C-stands because usually the lights that are in your office are not enough to make a difference. So we have to add in a lot of light. We have preview monitors that are going up. And then the guests would sit here. We dress the set with usually lots of plants and knickknacks. And then Michael, the host, sits here, and you can see what we see. That is how we make the interview happen, is I look in this camera and we check all the lights and the sound. And that is how we do it behind the scenes.
Welcome to another fantastic episode here on Small Business Celebration. We're going to be talking about how does community involvement play in your growth, branding, and keeping your clients. We're also going to talk about how to stay relevant and profitable in the age of streaming and podcasts from a terrestrial source. And to guide us through all this is Danny Hill, the owner of Hill Broadcasting. Welcome to Small Business Celebration.
Hi, thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
And for visionaries who don't know who you are you and what is it that you do?
I'm Danny Hill. I own Hill Broadcasting. So I run 4 radio signals, 2 formats. I'm also a wedding DJ. That's where I got my roots. I started mixing a long time ago. I'm a syndicated radio personality. I'm on the air in 15 markets. And apparently a social media person now. I've now moved into the realm of being an influencer.
Influencer extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Well, you've got people now that are literally tracking you off the street and say, here, do a review of my food.
Yeah, people, they'll ask me to do things. I get a lot of businesses hitting me up. I just had a hotel chain in Pismo Beach ask me if they gave me a free weekend stay, would I come down and do a review of their hotel?
And you said?
I said no, because I had to bring my kids, right? And then they're like, you wanted it to be a romantic getaway. And I'm like, you're not going to get the review you're thinking. So I pushed it back to October because I am going to go, I'm DJing a wedding at the Madonna Inn.
Nice.
So I needed a place to stay.
Are you gonna stay in the cave room, or do you know?
I've only stayed in a couple of rooms there. Me and my wife went there for our anniversary, so we stayed in the Paris room, and then and I've been there once before when I was in college, but that's it. I've only been in a couple of rooms.
Why did you get into radio in the first place?
Because I wanted to be an actor, and there wasn't a high demand for this.
The unemployment lines are shorter for radio
DJs?
DJs?
It was like, there was a lot of, the background story is actually pretty funny. So I was dating this girl, her name's Kelly Riley, and I thought we were gonna get married and have kids. She was from Omaha, Nebraska. And we were in college together. She moved out here and went to college, and I was in love. And she eventually, I guess, she cheated on me. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. And I was heartbroken. I was really upset. I was supposed to go into my math class at Cuesta. I was going to Cuesta at the time, Cuesta College. And I was crying because I'm a very emotional guy. And I was like, why doesn't she love me? What's wrong with me? And I look up and I see this guy, and he's probably 300 pounds. And he's standing in front of this building, and he's got these like 3 girls, college girls, just enamored with him. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I can't get a girlfriend, and this guy's got all these girls around him.
Right.
And of course I'm like 17 at the time, 18, because I went to college earlier. So they get done, they leave, and I walk up, I dry my tears, and I'm like, so what is it? Excuse me, what do you do? And he goes like, I'm in the radio business. And I was like, that's it? That's all you have to do? And he's like, yeah, I work here at KGUR, and they were requesting some songs, and I was all, oh. So like, how do you do that? And he's like, well, we're doing a fundraiser. For $5, you get 30 minutes on the radio. And then I was like, oh, here's $20. You know, let's do it. So that was my first radio show.
But how did you end up buying the radio stations in Bakersfield?
Well, you fast forward, it took a lot of work. I saved up a lot of money. I worked alone. I got a lot of experience. And then the core of that answer is my mother, she was diagnosed with cancer. I was working in Hawaii at the time. I was on the island of Kauai, and I was the VP of programming for HOI Media. And I had like 14 radio stations I was in charge of. She was lying to me. She kept saying like, oh, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. But as the years were going on, I could tell something wasn't okay.
Right.
So I was in Kansas, and then I knew she was getting real bad, so I got hired back with Buckley briefly in my career, which sold to Alpha Media, and then they weren't doing well, and I was all in Bakersfield, so they wanted me to come back to Bakersfield, so I said yes, get me out of Kansas, it's closer to where my mom lives. So I went up to start visiting her, and she passed away. But before she died, she said, I have an inheritance, and it's $100,000, and $50,000 is going to go to your sister, and $50,000 is going to go to you. So I want you to do something with it, because I'm not a spender. I don't like spending money. It's not fun for me. My shoes are old, my pants are old, my shirt's old. In fact, these pants, I would show you, but it's probably gross. There's holes in the crotch and in the back, and I've sewed it myself, because I don't like buying new clothes. Like it's not fun for me. So I was like, okay, this is my mom's money. Like, I have to spend this money. Right. So we were looking at houses, and the market at the time was not great for me to buy a home. And then I didn't know what to do. And I was driving one day. Again, I cry a lot. So I was in my car, and I was thinking of my mom, and I was crying. And I ended up in Taft. And I'm like, why am I in Taft? Because I'd been driving and crying. Probably pretty dangerous. So I go to check the station, and it skips by the station, and it lands on 98.1, and it's playing like hard rock music. And I go, what is this? And I start looking it up and discover it's owned by a guy named Steve. I called him, and he picks up the phone because he was just there. And I go, hey man, is your radio station for sale? And he's like, yeah, I mean, everything's for sale. How much, And then so we started the conversation, and that conversation lasted for like 8 months of how we could do this. And he wanted like $800,000 for that station. And I had $50,000. So we were off by a little bit, right?
A little bit of daylight.
Yeah, we were off by a little bit. So I called my buddy George, who I worked with in Hawaii, and I was like, how do I buy this? He said something which was crazy to me for business. I had no idea you could do this. He said, did you buy your car outright? I go, no. He said, you make payments. He said, did you buy your house outright? No. He said, you make payments. He said, nobody buys anything with cash. He's like, offer him a down payment and have him carry a note. And I was like, oh. And he's like, and just figure out what you could do. So I did. I said, look, I'll give you $10,000 down. You'll carry a note for 10 years. The amount I can do, I'll do $250,000 cost, but I'll give you a 6% interest rate, so you still make money off of it. And I go, what are you doing now? You're doing nothing. And he said, no, that's crazy. I could sell it for more than that. So he hangs up the phone, and I text him back a picture of me and my kids and my wife. And I said, this is fun for you. It's life-changing for me. Change my life. And he wrote back, you just bought a radio station.
And then you got your wife involved in a morning show.
Well, because we had to get
against her will.
She doesn't like it. My wife, God bless her, she's a saint. She's an introvert. She does not like radio. She does not like television. She does not like being in the front of anything. And today she's a television host and a radio host, and she does it, but it's not who she is, if that makes sense.
Right.
She's not that.
Well, and you've gotten some pushback from people, because with radio you can't see your voice, you can't see your faces, I should say. You can only hear your voices. So you've gotten blowback from people who think, oh, she's real snarky or pissed off at you or whatever. How does that work?
Well, they'll still think I'm mean too. I think a lot of times they don't realize I'm married to her.
So you can get away with things.
Yeah, so they're just like, my favorite comments are, they know I'm married, but they don't know it's to her. So they'll be like, man, if that was my wife, I would be highly upset, right? And I'm like, well, that's my wife. Because I'll say things to her sometimes like, you look really hot today.
Right.
And then they'll email me with, you're married, sir. You shouldn't be talking to your co-host that way. And that's harassment. And I'm like, oh, I'm married to her. So she actually encourages that behavior. She wants me to tell her she looks good every single day. I'm doing that.
Rule number 1 of staying married: let your wife know she's good looking.
Yeah, you have, like, every day is a good, I would say, set a reminder on your phone for first thing when you wake up. You look beautiful today. That's great.
And you've parlayed this into a whole variety of different things, because how many Instagram followers do you have now? Because you've worked that very well.
Yeah, well, I'm up to 72.8 thousand followers.
And you're number 2 in the country market, number 1 in the top 40?
Well, depending on what you're looking at. But, the last book that came out, Rewind, was number 1, women 25-54 for time spent listening.
Right.
So it's funny, ratings are a funny thing.
Right.
You can always find something that makes you look good, right? So it's like, for people that have one eye that live on H Street, we're the number 1.
Have pink poodles, exactly.
Yeah, and then they give you like 12 plus numbers, and as a business owner, you're like, no one's trying to advertise to a 12-year-old or 13 or 14. They don't have any money. So really, your core demo should be like women 25-54. That's really where advertisers land in, because they make all the decisions.
Right. So as a business owner who wants to advertise, where do you typically steer them with your radio stations and saying, because you mentioned, okay, I got women between 24 to 35, the number 1 mark. How does that work?
Well, it's all about repetition. So radio is repetition, which is like, it's like it's almost like a billboard on a highway. Like, you kid it up there and the first day it's up, you're probably not going to get any response. The second day it's up, you might not get any response. Right. But 3 months later, someone pulls in and goes, man, I saw your billboard. Well, it took them 3 months to pull over to buy whatever you're trying to sell on a billboard. And that's how radio is. There's a lot of radio stations that charge a lot of money, and because they say that we have a large audience. We have such a large audience. We just got to air it once, and they're all going to hear it. No. So my greatest comparison is this. So it's the number 1 most watched event in the nation, right? Arguably, I think it is. That's it. So every year they get anywhere between like 100 to 120 sponsors. But and the commercial spots are like 30 million, 60 million, $1 billion. I mean, it goes up every year.
Right.
And then my question is, how many of those can you remember? And even if you're an ad person like me, and I watch it for the commercials, and I'm like, want to know, I'm like, okay, there was like a Coke commercial, there was like a Budweiser commercial, there was like a Don't Let Your Kids Swim Alone commercial. I don't really remember any other than that.
The Harrison Ford ad for Jeep.
Yeah, there's like that. So even if you're really good and you remember 10, does that mean the other 90 wasted their money?
Right.
100%, because it would have been better to take that $60 million and dump it into a lesser known channel like the WB and own that for a year, probably 5 years, than that 30 seconds on the largest stage. So I would rather have 5 people know who I am than 1 million people not remember me. And that should be how everybody markets. Like, they're always into views, and I need views, and my social media, I average 8.5 million views every 30 days. But that doesn't mean they know me.
Right.
That just means they saw it. And and another good comparison too is, we always ask about ratings and how do they know things? Well, branding and using is different. And in my world, we have Nielsen ratings. So you see the ratings and they go, well, these are the ratings. These are how many people are listening. And I go, but is that the truth? Because if you ask somebody, name shoe brands, they'll say Nike, Converse, Adidas, whatever.
Right.
And that's the question. But the real question should be, what are you wearing now? Well, I'm wearing Hoka's. You're wearing whatever those are. Question is not, what do we know? Because they branded that. The question is, what do you use? And that's why when people go off a memory recall of, name something, and then they go, well, that must be the best. Well, I don't think so. Because they're not using it. They just know it. People know a lot of stuff. All right? But that doesn't mean that's the best. So it's interesting. And that's why, and every company's different. Who are they trying to gear towards? If you're a place that as a burial site and you're really looking to gear towards people at the tail end of their life, well, there's a format for that. People that are older listening to that. News talk is typically where that
right
where that would be, right? And in big band music, if that even exists. But But there's realms. But if you're a younger female and you're a new mom and you have different concerns, so there's a different format for that. So
Are you trying to say new moms aren't concerned about burial plots?
not necessarily. Yeah, they're not
Weird.
necessarily in
Weird
that same
that.
thing. And it's the same with like males. And so that's why like when I watch a TV show, I know exactly who they're going for by the commercials, because you can look at it and go, oh, this is, and it's funny when you're watching a guy show, because for us, it's like all the same advertisements. Are you tired of losing your hair? Are your testosterone levels low? And I'm always like, oh, I'm watching the Old Man Network right now, because they're dead on. And I'm always like, well, I am bald. I know my testosterone. Keep going, sir. Keep going.
And if the house that you're in falls into the old man bald category and you want a new one because you're looking to go ahead and spring anew, might I suggest you reach out to Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier Agent with Watson Realty. Born and raised and never left Bakersfield. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at MikeSaba1 at iCloud.com today. And Visioneers, if you've got a question, you've got a thought, something you'd like to learn about here on Small Business Celebration, reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and your question could appear just like Joel, who asks, what role does community involvement play in your station's growth, branding, and keeping your audience?
I'm in a market where there is a lot of competition. I'm literally a mom and pop. It's me and my wife. That's it. Right? I got people that do some work for me. They're like independent contractors.
Right.
But this is me and my wife. And when you go to social events in Bakersfield, you will see me at almost all of them. Mostly emceeing, DJing, attending. You know what you won't see? People from iHeartRadio. Right? You won't see them there. People from other clusters in this market. And after a while, the perception is reality. Well, Danny's he's at everything.
Right.
This is the guy.
Right.
And they remember me. So it's not, again, it's like the advertising thing.
Is this part of the reason why your country station, we're not going to mention any other stations, but there's been one that's been here for a very long time that everybody assumes is king of the hill. But your Outlaw radio station has been climbing and beating them. Do you think it's because you've been doing that?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it's that, getting in front of people and then, different programming. And, I think when you get to a spot where you're comfortable where you're at, I think business owners, they get into this routine. It's like year 10 and they're like, I'm making good money. It's not great. I don't need to expand anymore. Why would I change the furniture in the lobby? People are still coming. You get kind of complacent. And when you get complacent is when someone else goes, I could take a shot at that. I could do that. And for me, my overhead's so low, I don't have to be number one. I don't have to be number two. I don't even have to be top 10. I just have to be someone who's making a little bit of cash. And if it's enough money to feed me and my family, I'm happy. And what happens is after a while, that just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. It's the country station's the easiest one to do. It's all, we support the troops, God bless America, and here's country music from the 90s and early 2000s with a little new mixed in. It's perfect, and I know it's perfect because I DJ weddings, and that's what they want. And I think that's where I have an inside track on music. I'm not a genius at it. I just DJ a lot of weddings and parties and things, and when they request music, I go mental note, this is what they want. Oh, they still want this? Oh, this song's still popular? All right, then I'm going to play that on the radio. It's not a hard equation. Just figure out what they want and play it. And because Bakersfield is regional and everybody here is totally, and that's the part like with my videos that go viral, they are very confused at how I know a lot of these words and these things. And because in Bakersfield, no matter who you are in the Hispanic culture, right?
Right.
So we're in it.
Right.
And even though I am a redhead that's pasty pale, I am it's my food, it's my culture, it's my music, it's everything I was raised with. So I know that Suavemente is universal, right?
Sure.
We all know what song that is.
Right.
I know that La Chona is universal, as well as that I know that certain country songs, that are universal here. The way I know certain hip hop songs are universal here. So when you have that knowledge and you know what the background is, you just put it on the playlist and people think that, this is great. And I go, yeah, I know it's great. Your cousin asked for it 3 weeks ago. when I was DJing their wedding, right? So I know the background of it. So that's been kind of the fun part is doing this facet. For me, the hardest part about owning a radio station wasn't the programming because I DJ. It wasn't the radio part because I've always been talking. It wasn't the getting it all together, the management part. It was the engineering part. That was the hardest because that's a part that no one tells you about. That there's transmitters and there's coax cables and there's antennas and then there's audio processing.
And then there's snow.
Yeah, there's
and
snow.
Southern California Edison.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the Visioneer game. Now, Visioneers, if you're not familiar with the way the game works, I have a random word generator here on my phone. I have no idea what the random words the generator is going to create, but more importantly, neither does our guest. And our guest has to take each of 3 words that I give him and somehow associate each word with his business. Now, Danny, you do realize that the fate of the entire broadcasting industry is based on your ability to get these 3 words correct.
Right, that's a lot of pressure.
It is. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, your first word is sickness.
Sickness. So how does it relate to radio?
Yeah, your business specifically.
Oh, okay. Well, my business specifically, I'll just say from radio, and this is a funny correlation, I don't take sick days. And the reason you don't take sick days in radio and television is it's horrible. Because if you take a day off and the person that fills in for you is better, you may not have your job when you come back. So you just don't take a day off. That's how you protect yourself. So sickness is, yeah, I'll never, even if I'm sick, I've been, welcome to the show. And they're like, you should go home. I go, I'll go home at 10. That's when I'll go home. And then you leave.
Very good. That's 1 for 1. Well done, you. Okay, our second word is knife.
Knife. You work with people who stab you in the back, right? So radio is a cutthroat industry, and it's funny because everyone is very egotistical for no reason whatsoever. They're very,
can't imagine.
They're very into themselves, and it's really funny to watch. And they will be friendly to your face and stab you in the back if you have an opportunity that they want, or if you have a remote, or you're making more money, or whatever they're jealous of. So yeah, there's knives involved. Metaphorically, I guess. Very
good. That's 2 for 2. Well done. Now it all comes down to this.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Uh-huh.
Oh boy. This is going to be too easy. Gossip.
Oh, gossip. That's what makes the
Here's
world...
a softball.
Yeah, that's what makes the world go around. Gossip. Everyone's gossiping all the time. But I think majority of what we talk about is gossip. It's entertainment news. So you don't know that. My favorite thing that you'll read is sources close to Brad Pitt say. Sources? What does that even mean? Sources? Like, you just made that up, and anybody can say sources.
Right.
So you're talking about some sort of gossip thing. So gossip is 90%, I think, of what is talked about. There's no confirmation. There's supposed to be like integrity with reporters, but I'm not a reporter. Rush Limbaugh always got people getting mad at him when he was alive because they were like, you're saying something wrong or this isn't correct, and he would always point back and go, this is just an opinion show. This is not a news show.
This is entertainment for a reason.
This is entertainment, yeah. So I'm just telling you, and it could be true or it might not be true. I don't know. I am not a news source.
Well, that's 3 for 3. Congratulations. The broadcasting world is safe because of you.
Yeah.
But it's not all wine and roses, because you've got how many towers on top of a mountain?
Well, one tower with multiple antennas on it.
You had a situation earlier this year where the local electrical company up there shut down the power to your radio station.
Yeah, the good people at Southern California Edison are constantly doing maintenance or shutting down the powers because of high winds.
Right, because it is on top of a mountain.
On top
and
of
there's
a mountain.
power lines, fires, yeah.
So there'll come time where they're like, hey, we've got to do some maintenance up there. And, I'll get a text message because I'm on the text message chain, and there's a couple of them coming up. So I've tried to adjust, like putting battery backups, but they only last so long, and I can't power everything on battery, so you just got to be prepared to, you're just going to be dead air for the 3 hours or whatever.
Unless you have a generator.
Unless you have a generator. And then I got a message from them, this was earlier, not this year, but last year. They said, hey, we're going to be off for 8 hours Monday, 8 hours Tuesday, 8 hours Wednesday, 8 hours Thursday, 8 hours Friday, and then we're going to come back and do it again. So it ended up being 2 weeks of being off the air, and I'm like, I can't do that.
No.
So I would drive from my house, I live in Southwest Bakersfield, all the way up to Alta Sierra. It's about an hour and 30-minute drive. and I go to the very top, and I would sit there, pull out a generator, fill it full of gasoline, I'd crank it on, I'd plug my station in with an extension cord that goes to my rack that's got all the power in it. Had to make sure it was 240, and then I would sit there, and they'd turn the power off, and you'd see the guys, hey guys, yeah, I guess you're doing stuff, right? And I would sit there with my generator and run it until they'd be done, and then I'd be done, turn it off the generator, unplug it, plug it back into the wall for overnight, and then I would turn around and go back and do it the next day.
How does this work when you are live on the radio from 6 to 10 with your wife and they're starting work at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m.?
Well, we pre-recorded the show, and so I wasn't sleeping then. So, I mean, a little bit, but I would come home. By the time I'd make it home, they'd be done at 5. I'd be home by like 6:37. I would sit down to have dinner. Then we'd go into our home studio and we record. I mean, because we have affiliates in other states, we have to record the night before anyway. So we would record the show, and then I would send it over, and I would do all the work that I'd missed throughout that day because I was gone all day.
Right.
And I wouldn't go to bed till like midnight 1, set my alarm for 5, get up and go do it again.
And this is what you signed up for.
I didn't know any of this. Yeah, I didn't know.
You just thought you could be a radio
yeah,
personality.
I just thought it was gonna be all fun, bells and whistles. You know, when you're a business owner, you work whenever you want. It's all fun and easy. It's a lie. You know, you have the freedom to work until you're dead is what being a business owner is. Congratulations. You get the freedom to do that.
And that brings us to our second Visioneer question, which is also brought to you by Mike Saba, a Zillow Premier Agent with Watson Realty, selling Bakersfield homes since 1992. Give Mike Saba a call at 661-203-8406 or reach him at mikesaba1@icloud.com today. Visioneer Katie asks, how are you adapting your station's business model to stay relevant and profitable in the age of streaming and podcasts? But you already addressed this a little bit earlier, saying radio is just mopping the floor with all of us.
Yeah, it's still massive. But I've adapted by going into social media because what I also wanted to do is I wanted to prove my point, which was ratings don't matter. Ratings are something where they ask the wrong question. I wanted to see what people wanted to do. Voting for free is liking and following.
Right.
That's a free thing to do.
Right.
So if you're so good at what you're doing, if you are so popular at your radio station and you have 150,000 listeners every 15 minutes, awesome. Why does your social media have 2,000 followers?
Right.
So one of two things is true. Either you're very, very well known and they all hate you, right? Or
it's possible.
It's possible. Or you're not as well known as, there's not that many listeners as you thought there were.
Right.
And that's the part that I adapted into that. And then it kind of moves people over. Like right now, I just had a text message from a business in town saying, hey, will you come do a video?
Nice.
Yeah, and that's how I work. I'll do a video with you, but you're also going to advertise on the radio because the extent of how many people react to this and how many people react to that, it's better when it's coincided. Like that, this stuff is, every business owner should diverse into as many different things as they can. Advertise on this show, great, but also, if advertise on the radio, also advertise on television. You shouldn't just stick to one thing because you'd be surprised how many people don't leave their lane. Some people only watch YouTube videos. Some people never watch YouTube videos.
Right.
And those could be the same people that want your plumbing service, right?
Right.
And digital numbers right now, I also sell digital. Digital is so crazy because you could show on a piece of paper, oh, I had 150,000 exposures. Oh, I had 74 clicks, but I had 0 ticket purchases.
Right.
That's crazy. So was that exposure worth it? No, because you had 0 sales.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you should be judging yourself by the money you're making and the amount your cash register rings, not off of how many people saw you. That doesn't make any sense. Notoriety doesn't pay my electric bill.
It's no secret that there's a lot of business owners right now who are struggling.
Yeah.
What do you say to encourage business owners and let them know that not all hope is lost?
Don't give up, and everyone's lying. The number one thing they say is when you ask a business owner, how's business? It's going good. Everything's going good. But what they're not saying is, man, I'm really stressed. This is hard. This is difficult. I quit 4 times last week, but my wife said I couldn't because we got to feed the kids. So I guess I'm still here, and I really don't have any other options, and I'm still pushing as hard as I can on this. That's the truth. We're all in the same boat. We all have ups and downs. At some months, I'm like, this is the greatest decision I've ever made. And some months, I'm like, what am I doing? Why is this happening? And I think the honesty is the hardest part for business owners. When I go to get someone to advertise and they say no, I can sense right off the bat because they can't afford it. And that's a hard thing to say to another person you're not friends with. So the honesty is the hard part. Right. I can't afford it. I'm financially unable. I'm struggling right now. But if they're honest, then that's where you work out a deal. All right, man, I've been there. You know, I own these stations. I don't have a corporate overlord to tell me what to charge. So I've worked out those deals before where someone's struggling. I go, okay, here's what we'll do. You give me 2 lollipops for my daughters and, you know, and I'll plug your car wash, you know, something like that. So it's like, you know, I'm all about helping the community. It's all about making it better. But, you know, my Instagram is all about jokes of things that I see. And I think people confuse the two with one's observational comedy and one's actually work, one's my job.
Danny, this has been a real treat. Thank you for joining us here on Small Business Celebration.
Of course, thanks for having me. And thanks for being persistent.
Because how long have I been working on you to come on the show?
It's been a couple of years.
But that's because you do like 1,000 of these. This is the last thing you want to be doing.
Yes.
And yet you came and joined us. Thank you.
Well, you're a nice guy. And here's the thing that most people may not know about you is you are genuinely a very kind person. And it takes a little bit to get to know you to see that, because you come across like you have it. No, it's almost like you're outgoing and you come across like you have it all together and like, you know, no big deal. But once you get to know you, you're a really nice guy. And so I think that's part of me is I think when I first met you, I was like, I don't even know who this guy is. And, you know, why would I want to participate? And then once I got to know you, I was like, he's a good guy. I like you. So
Why, thank you.
So I apologize for me not getting to know you quicker.
Well, part of what I try to do is I try to set the bar so low that you can step over it.
It's true. I think you just lift it up a little bit. Try to trip them as they're running away, right?
Exactly. And if Visioneers want to get in touch with you and find out about advertising and promotional opportunities, how do they do that?
Call my cell phone, 559-213-0173. 559-213-0173.
What was that number again?
559-213-0173. Call me, text, whatever. I answer questions. I love talking about business. I love getting into your business. And, you know, I love hearing about what they do, how they get it done, and then I can tell you how we can help. And if it's not me and I'm not the one that can help, I can point you in the right direction. I don't own a Spanish radio station, but sometimes Spanish radio is needed, and I know who to point you in the direction to do that, right? Same with television and newspapers and all that stuff, right? And billboards. I mean, I can show you where to go. I like helping people with that without taking a cut.
And I'll be right back with my final thought. It's not pressure, it's solving a problem. It's not pressure, it's solving a problem. Not that long ago, I was talking with a Visioneer friend of mine. She was training a new salesperson on how to close a sale. And when we went online to do an internet search on how to close a sale, there was like 1,000+ gurus who will teach you how to close a sale. But when you do a similar internet search on how to teach somebody how to close a sale, it's like crickets. Why? Well, most sales trainers will tell you, you just have to do it. When in reality, teaching somebody how to close a sale is not really very difficult. It begins with helping the salesperson get a whole bunch of prospects lined up. The faster, the more, the better. Because if you fail, it gets you closer to success, and it takes the pressure off the salesperson to succeed on that one make or break deal. The second part is, if you want to ask for the check, first solve the problem. And that's the process that the new salesperson has to go through. When it comes to closing, just simply solve the problem. Then asking for the check is easy. So as you're going through with your business and you're trying to rack your brain on why your sales team may not be doing as well as they could be, remember, relieve some of the pressure on them. Help them get a whole bunch of prospects to start. Then, solve the problem. That is the key to success. The key to sales closing? Well, relieve the pressure and solve the problem. I hope you enjoyed our conversation this week here on Small Business Celebration, and I hope you learned something that you can use today to grow a strong and profitable business. And we'll see you here again next week when we celebrate another small business making a big breakthrough. How not to do a radio voice.
So the idea is not to puke. So you don't, puking is where you know, and I do this, and this is why my joke on my videos came from. In the city of Bakersfield, California, you'll see TV people still do it. Puking is where you attempt to sound different than you naturally sound. That's puking. You don't want to do that. So just act like yourself. Just speak normal and let it come out. Video has not killed the radio star. Radio is still the #1 consumed media source in America. And according to reports, there's more people listening to radio than watching television, than listening to podcasts, I'm sorry, and to all the other sources. Radio is dominant, and the reason is it's free, and everything else costs money, whether it costs getting HD rabbit ears, or getting a subscription, or having a phone that can download all this stuff, because the internet isn't free. Radio still dominates because it's free and readily available. The songs that I play the most are the songs that people typically feel they're unique by requesting. They want to hear Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars. That song's like 15 years old, but it's a danceable song. Etta James At Last was like a first dance song for like 20 years, and now it's kind of moved on to, there's a couple of them that they're like father-daughter dances. It's a country song, My Little Girl, or Tim McGraw. They're like, we want to come out to Tonight It's Gonna Be a Good Night by Black Eyed Peas. And I'm like, oh, of course you do. And that's every wedding, right? And they're like, do you think that's great? And I'm like, yeah, it's wonderful. And then tonight's gonna be, and they're like, good night. And they're all excited. I'm like, I've literally played this since this song came out at every wedding for the intro. Weirdest place I've been recognized is when I'm outside of Bakersfield. I get recognized in Bakersfield every day. But I had a reaction the other day when I went into Sully's. I walked in, and when you walk in, they say, welcome. She looks over and she goes, welcome, oh my God, you're here. And I froze, and I was like, oh, she must be talking about someone else. And I looked behind me, and it was me. And she's like, they said you come here sometimes. And she came running over, and she just really wanted to talk to me. And I was so excited for her, because I didn't think I was that exciting to me. So to me, that was like the fun stuff. But the weirdest place is like, I go to Disneyland, and people they'll go, oh, we're from Bakersfield, oh my God. Or, I follow you on Instagram. I had one lady from LA, she goes, I don't even live in Bakersfield, but I follow you on Instagram. I think it's so funny. And I was at a restaurant. We were in San Diego. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And it drives my kids crazy when I try to be funny around their friends. They don't think it's funny. They don't like it. They don't want the attention drawn to them. So I've had to learn to kind of cool it when their friends are over. I don't be as dorky, and it's not about me. And so I try to key it down. They do like the fact that all their friends know who I am. They think that's funny, but as they get older into high school, it becomes more of a nuisance, because they know that I have a lot of people that can tell on them. So it's, and they know where to send the video. So that they don't like it as they get older. But I find a situation funny for an Instagram post by literally just looking at it, and I'll record it, and then I'll bank it. And then later that night, I'll be looking at it and going, how is this funny? What is this? How does this equate to comedy? And then I'll do a couple of takes, and then I'll say something, and I'll laugh, and I'll go, that was it. That's funny. If I make myself laugh, I go, that's the one. When you do comedy, people always say, tell me a joke. And you're like, man, I'm in a bar, I'm walking somewhere, and I'm like, I don't have a joke. So I had to get like 2 or 3 set jokes in my head. So I have jokes that I can just pull out and tell people, but they're pretty coarse, but they're pretty funny.